Janelle Monae is an R&B neo-soul singer who has taken this decade by storm in the R&B genre, adding so much variety and so much creativity to R&B, and she's put out some of the better R&B albums that we've seen this decade. The Arcandroid, perhaps one of the greatest albums that this decade will see. I know David at Dotsy Lines on Twitter disagrees with me on that, but you know what, David? Let's just hear me out for a second. You're wrong. And the Arcandroid honestly is an amazing album. I did a 2010 albums list, which I do believe I was wrong, because I do think actually the Arcandroid was the best album to come from 2010, easily my favourite album. And The Electric Lady was her follow-up in 2013, had some amazing singles on that album too. Not quite as great as the Arcandroid, in my opinion, but still carried on the sort of sci-fi themes. The neo-soul music was still vibrant, some great features on there too, and I can see why some people may prefer that album to the Arcandroid, but honestly I just think the Arcandroid is so much better in many ways. And at this point, Janelle Monae's seen a lot of critical acclaim, a lot of commercial success, bizarrely never having like a hit in the charts or anything like that. I don't know how, because I could name at least 5 or 6 songs that she's released as singles that would fit perfectly in the pop world. But the pop world is just in a bad place. It's in a bad place, you know. Pop music in the 2010s, it's rough. But it could really do with someone like Janelle Monae, who often has some activist, politically charged words to say, some social commentary in her music too. It fits perfectly in today's time frame of, you know, very politically overcharged art that comes out. We see it in films, we see it in music. We've always seen it in films and music and TV, but I just feel like this decade it's elevated even higher and almost in everything we see. And with incredibly catchy music to go with it, you would think that Janelle Monae would have some sort of place in the mainstream, but hey, maybe soon or maybe never. Who knows? I don't know. And this album was leading up to be another excellent Janelle Monae release. Make Me Feel was a fantastic Prince-inspired single, which I still jam out since I played it on that reaction. It's going to be one of the best songs of the year, no doubt. Django Jane, a bit more of a trap influenced track that she also released that same day. Not as big on that track, to be honest. I do like her sort of aggression and her, you know, like that sort of ferocious delivery that she gives on the track. It's really quite amped up and I do appreciate it, but I'm not really that convinced on all the lyrics, to be honest. I'll get into the lyrics a little bit later in this review because I kind of just want to get it out the gate right now that this album didn't do much for me, honestly. I'm sad. I wanted to love this. I came into this album thinking I was going to love it. Every fucking time I do this, I get let down. And yeah, you know, Janelle Monae is keeping those same themes, that same political angst on this album, which I know a lot of people will appreciate. These sensual vocals, the wonderfully produced R&B neo-soul music. It's all still there, but I just don't enjoy it as much. And it's annoying. Reminds me a lot of the St. Vincent album, Mass Seduction, in the same way that like I enjoyed a lot of the tracks. I had high expectations for it, but there were too many lulls and just none of it really lived up to the best music that she put out. It's not in comparison even like close to, in my opinion, to the Arcandroid. Like, I just don't think it's close to that. And when you hear something so great and the themes and the ideas in the dystopian sci-fi world melding all together with these amazing lyrics and the music actually sounding so pristine, like it just floors you. And then when it's sort of replicated down the line and not as exciting, it's just bound to not be as good. But for sure, this album will get a lot of critical acclaim. I feel like I'm going to be speaking on deaf ears here, because I feel like anyone that's listening to this review will be like, Ryan, what the fuck are you talking about? This album's amazing, one of the best of the year, but I just don't feel it. So of course Janelle Monae has been like into films a lot more recently. She's actually proven to be a pretty good actress. She was great in Moonlight, great in Hidden Figures. I would like to see more of her in more things because I think her acting is fantastic. So of course that's kind of transferred over to the music world because there is a film sort of thing to go along with this. I personally am just going to look at it through the album, mostly because I just want to listen to music and focus on the music without having to take in other media to make everything come together. Sure, it could be great, but I just feel like I want to focus solely on an album. And this concept is basically that that our brains are this dirty computer. We download, upload constantly. We take in viruses that may be positive, negative, yada yada yada, that kind of thing. And to me, that is just so basic. Like, oh yeah, of course, there are positives and negatives to all humans. Like, you don't need to throw on this really simple computer sci-fi aspect to it. Like, I just don't think it adds anything, and it honestly makes some of the tracks a little corny, like Take a Bite. I mean, it's just such a cheesy song, the way she's like, take a bite. It's just like, ah, man. Bite being spelled like B-Y-T-E, bite, computer, ugh, yeah, you get it. Then we've got the opening track, Dirty Computer, with Brian Wilson. Doesn't really set the tone for the album, a pretty bland opener to the whole thing. And of course, with this idea that our brains are constantly downloading different types of things, the album is a little all over the place, and that makes sense, you know. There are different aspects of our minds and of our sort of beings, that it's not just one note, you know. Not every track's going to be about one thing, everything's going to be about something else, and then the music's going to go a little all over the place too, and that's fine. It just doesn't really make for a great listen. You know, I mentioned Make Me Feel as the single, and it still ends up being the obvious standout, because when you get to that track, like, it's just such like it's such a bop, you know. It stops you in your tracks and you're just like, yes, I'm ready to dance now. But it's kind of like, well, everything before this didn't really get me doing this, and Make Me Feel actually doesn't really fit the concept at all. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, the one track that's kind of out of its element on the album ends up being the best track. So does that kind of show that the concept is a little weak anyway? Janelle Monae does do a good job though of like speaking for minorities. A lot of these tracks do focus on women, you know, the empowerment of women, minorities, and of course like the American oppression, I guess, you get on the closing track. And that's great, you know. It's good when someone can be a spokesperson for people that you feel that are being oppressed. But like a track like Pink, I mean, you know, I just don't know. Like, I just don't know what this is meant to be. Like, we've got Grimes on this song, who, you know, barely adds anything. Yeah, Pink, you know, feminine colour, you know, I get all that. But she's really not saying that much on this song, honestly. And musically, the verses are so boring, and it obviously is a bit of a reference to the Aerosmith song Pink as well. You can see that there's a little bit of a similar progression in the verses for that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what she's trying to say here. Like, okay, what's this adding to anything? I get, yeah, maybe appreciation for women's bodies, the vagina as well, you know, a little bit of a reference to that. And of course, that's all fine. But like, I don't know, I just don't think she does it in a very interesting way. On Crazy Classic Life, you can see that she's kind of going against the grain of the norm. You know, I don't need a diamond ring, you know, I wanna keep living young and stuff like that. She wants a crazy classic life, want to be remembered, something that's not, you know, like the expectations being put onto her, she doesn't want to follow those because she wants to live her own way, follow her own path. And this is kind of cool. Again, I have no qualms with this one, really. I guess it's a pretty okay song. Musically, again, I don't really think it's anything exciting. I I just don't really feel as though it's anything different for what she's done from her previous stuff. Again, you know, musically it's very similar. Not as interesting or as bold musically. Pretty straightforward, just a nice swift R&B track, but nothing too exciting for me. I Got the Juice has Pharrell on it. This track, you know, is a little bit, I don't know. I don't know, I feel like there's that Chance the Rapper song that references Juice, and I never really thought that that was a particularly good song. It was just a bit lame, I thought, and this is another track, like I Got the Juice, it's just like, I don't know, when I hear it I'm just like, okay, like I feel like everything's like meant to be a metaphor in this album as well. Everything is just something else. It's not just like this is this, this is this. No, you're reading into it wrong. You're not understanding what I'm saying. This is actually this, and you just don't get us because we're so different. And this album, I think, does go anti-establishment as well. I do feel like she's trying to explain to people that might not understand that actually, you know, things aren't like this. You know, we can be sexually free. You know, you shouldn't be judging people based on that, and all of that's really good. Just, I guess, I just feel like it's too much of a metaphor, you know? Like, I feel like too much of this album relies on metaphors, which can be really good for art. Like, it can be great when something means something else, but it's just so hard to get right, and it's so hard to do in a really cool way. Like, generally, it just doesn't sound as interesting as you think it does. And when things are straightforward and to the point, like on a track like Screwed, I mean, I'm just fine with this. You know, this is a really catchy track. Zoe Kravitz is on the song too. It's just generally a great R&B jam. I have no issues with this. It's like Make Me Feel, you know, it's just straight to the point. There's not too much pretentiousness, like smothered by like more pretentiousness. It's just, this is this, that's it. No computer, no sci-fi, nothing over the top, and you know, not taking an argument that not that many people actually believe in, but you just saw it on the internet, so that means, oh well, so many people must think this way. No, which is essentially the closing track, Americans. I again, like, it's one of those songs, if you're liberal you're gonna agree with it, if you're right wing you're gonna disagree with it, and I'm generally somewhere in the middle of the political spectrum, so I guess there are some things those track that she does say that are really good and really thought-provoking, but some of the things are a little outdated. I mean, there's a part where she's on about like keeping women in the kitchen. Like, I mean, this isn't like 1951, okay? Like, that's not something many people believe in anymore. Yeah, there are extreme men out there that are arseholes that think that women need to cook for them and do all of that kind of stuff and do all the cleaning, but I'm telling you now, it's a very outdated idea, and there's so many men that don't believe this, so just putting it in the song is just like a why. I Like That is another track on this album that's very straightforward and to the point, very catchy again. It does seem to be like the more straightforward tracks that don't have an underlying theme actually end up being the most enjoyable musically too, which is kind of strange. I guess she's probably trying to go for a bit more of an artsy approach with the music on the tracks that have a bit more of a deeper meaning, but it's definitely way deeper. It's definitely something that she thinks is way deeper than it actually is. I know I'm being really negative with this. It's honestly not that bad. Musically, again, it's a Janelle Monae album. There are some great lyrics across the album, some great ideas. I just kind of wish she added something new to this dystopian sci-fi thing that she's got going on, because it's kind of overdone at this point. We're 3 albums in and it's starting to get tiresome. And I get that she's trying to speak truth to power, and I'll never attack people for doing that, because that's always something worth hearing. But, you know, I don't know, I just think there's better ways to do it without seeping it in all these metaphors and all these different ideas that mean other things. It just gets very, very over bloated. But overall, it's okay. It's okay. It's not bad at all. I do think it's an okay album. It just let me down quite a bit gonna go with a C grade. Let me know your thoughts on this Janelle Monae Dirty Computer album, if I'm being too harsh, if you think it's bad or good, if you think it's a best. I definitely think it's a worst, but hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know your thoughts, subscribe and all that stuff, and yeah, I'm gonna leave now before more people get angry at what I'm saying, because it's scary, and yeah, bye.